First, though, Victor Wembanyama landing hard on his jaw twice. He would leave the game, not return, went into concussion protocol. So the Spurs would have to get it done without their superstar. And late, Trailblazers up by 1. Deni Avdija, the lob to Robert Williams III. He gets it to go. Didn't make the end one. Then, final seconds, Devin Vassell for the tie. It's off the mark. And Portland steals game 2 against the Spurs, 106-103. An incredible finish here in the first round as Scoot Henderson had one of the best games of his life. 31 points on 11 of 17 shooting, 5 of 9 from deep. For the Spurs, Stephon Castle led the way with 18. De'Aaron Fox with 17, but just not enough firepower and defensive stops, more notably, to take down the Blazers. And now it's time to welcome in CBS Sports NBA analyst John Gonzalez and 16-year NBA pro Al Harrington. And y'all, this game changed dramatically when Victor Wembanyama went into concussion protocol after falling down hard on his jaw twice in the first half. Al, I'll start with you. Where did you see the change the most that led to the Blazers winning this game?
I think it was just the way that they play with the energy that they play with. They really, picked it up in the fourth quarter. They had a belief in themselves that they could actually win. I mean, to your point, you mentioned Scoot Henderson, man. He played the best that I've seen him play since his high school days. But I think that it's attributed to, I think that he's finally starting to get healthy. His confidence is growing. And, if he didn't play, we talked about, Deni having a big game tonight, but it came from a surprise person, which was Scoot. And because he played so well, obviously they were able to actually win the game.
Yeah, Scoot was phenomenal tonight, right? He goes for 31 points. And then, he was efficient, but on a night when he was really the only guy getting it going, you see Wemby go out and you're thinking, okay, if they're going to steal one, tonight's the night. And it didn't look like it was going to be the night because they were down 14 with 8.5 minutes left in a night where Deni Avdija didn't really look like himself. We were talking about this before we came on air, but remember at the end of game 1 where he had his full leg wrapped and it wasn't sure if it was a knee or a calf or maybe it was an ankle, but still not as aggressive as you would expect him to be, especially with Wemby out of there. And then all of a sudden some bit players, some role players who hadn't had good games. Toumani Camara looked really hesitant for much of the game. He ends up hitting 2 big threes in the fourth quarter, and then Deni Avdija gets close to the paint and lobs one up for Rob Williams to really put the Blazers ahead for good. And it's kind of like, wow, for them to pull this game off with Wemby potentially going into the concussion protocol, if he is officially in the concussion protocol, and we can talk about that, he probably misses game 3. Now the series is tied 1-1, and you're thinking if you're the Blazers, this whole thing might have shifted. Maybe we go back to Portland and we go up 2-1 when that would have sounded absurd a couple of days ago.
Yeah, the Blazers ended the game on a 27-10 run. The Spurs were up by as many as 14 in the fourth. They're unable to get it done even without their star, Victor Wembanyama. And yes, John, he did enter into concussion protocol. So that means he could potentially miss, game 3 probably and beyond. So how does this flip the series, Al? Because now it could be completely different tenor compared to before the series. We're thinking, oh, yeah, the Blazers might get one, but it's probably going to be a 5-game series with the Spurs getting the victory.
Well, a good thing, for the Spurs is that they're kind of used to playing without Victor, right? He's missed time multiple times this season, and they've continued to play at a super high level. So, without him, obviously it will be a tough hill to climb, but they are used to playing without him. And, Fox is playing really, really good. Stephon Castle can, take over a game at any time. I love Dylan Harper, man. It's like he's been here before. I can't wait for them to really give him the keys to the team and let's see what he could actually do. But, Cornette, he filled in, nicely without Wemby. So, since they've kind of used to that, I think that they'll be fine. But I will say that it will be tough to play in Portland. Portland has an unbelievable home court advantage. That crowd really brings it. And obviously those guys play a lot better, with some home cooking. So this will be a tough game 3 for them. But I am confident that they can go out there and win that game even without their best player.
Yeah, they're a deep team. And like Al said, they have had times when Wemby has been out. Fox, Castle, Vassell, those are all guys that you can lean on. And there's a reason why you go out and get Luke Cornett and give him $40 million, right? For situations when Wemby isn't out there. But when you officially enter the concussion protocol, just to take people through this, like all of a sudden there are certain steps that Wemby has to get. It's not just like, hey, I'm feeling okay, I can get out there for game 3. First, you can't participate in any basketball activities for 48 hours. Then you have to go through a series of steps. Like you have to stationary bike. You have to do some jogging. You have to do agility work. Then you have to get a neuro evaluation. And on top of all of that, you have to be symptom free, and then you're cleared to play. So I have a hard time believing, even though the game isn't until Friday, that he can get all of that done before game 3. Most likely, if I'm a betting man here, I'm saying Wemby's probably out for game 3. And even though the Spurs could win without him, if you're the Blazers, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, but you'll take that all day long. Wemby's not going to be there for game 3 in Portland. Sure, let's go.
Yeah, because that will definitely open up the paint, right? We saw that, especially with, Donovan Clingan down low and also Robert Williams III. So let's say Wemby is not going to play in game 3. John, what do the Spurs have to do differently that they didn't do in game 2 that prevented them from getting the victory?
Well, I mean, they got tight in the fourth quarter, right? I mean, you have a 14-point lead at home up with 8.5 minutes left. You're thinking you're golden, right? I mean, somebody needs to really step forward. I thought Devin Vassell was good in the fourth quarter, but Fox and Castle kind of disappeared a little bit. So you need all those guys to step forward. You're going to need a bigger game from Luke Cornett, even though he was pretty good tonight, but you're going to need him you're never going to replace Wemby's production, certainly not on the defensive end, but probably try to squeeze a little bit more out of him. We saw Harrison Barnes go down probably with a wrist injury. Dylan Harper, as Al mentioned, he looks like the moment's not too big for him. He's a rookie. Might need him to contribute a little bit more, although he was grabbing his wrist too. So I'm wondering about the injuries there. But yeah, this is one of those situations where they're really a deep team. And I think that they're a deeper team and a better team. Certainly they're a better shooting team than the Blazers, but tonight they weren't. Tonight they only shot 29% from 3. That's usually what the Blazers would shoot, right? Tonight the Blazers had a better shooting night from 3, which was great for them, especially on a night when Denny Avdia didn't really have his full offensive bag. So Spurs just got to be a little bit better shooting and then defensively.
Yeah, definitely. I think they got to play a lot faster. Try to get the ball down the court before, Portland gets their defense set. Fox is obviously, I think, he's probably, moves into that number 1 spot without Wemby. Obviously Castle is going to, continue to just play hard and have an effect on the entire game. And then defensively, I think that's where they can actually win the game. They really settle down, which they are a pretty good defensive team. Obviously they're a lot better with Wemby, but I think if they get out there and they really communicate and, really, hold each other accountable on the defensive end, I think that they can definitely figure out a way to win that game 3 because I agree with John. I think that Wemby is for sure not going to be able to play in game 3.
The series has officially begun with a road team beating the home team. We are now tied up at 1 game apiece. Al Harrington, John Gonzalez breaking it down like the bosses they are. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, bro.
And look at this. This is the Blazers' first win against the Spurs at home. First 11 games, San Antonio took all of them. On Tuesday, the Blazers steal one right under the nose of San Antonio, 106-103. And now we are going